to talk about hit the like button, subscribe, and YouTube channel. Thank you for helping me. Jesus love you always. Have faith in Jesus. God bless you.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our sources are taking us on a journey to the very end of one of the Bible's most complex books.
The book of Daniel.
Exactly. Specifically, chapter 12. And if you spend any time at all in prophetic literature, you know Daniel can be, well, a challenging landscape.
Shifting empires, these incredible survival stories and visions that are often pretty terrifying.
Right. And chapter 12 is the final word. It's Daniel's last essential message. And our material describes it as just packed with mystery, prophecy, and most importantly, profound promise.
And our mission here really is to be your guides through all that complexity, to move past, the debates about dates and symbolic beasts and really extract the core message that God gave to Daniel.
To an old man at that point.
An old man, exactly. And that message is simple. Hold on. Your deliverance is guaranteed. We're synthesizing analysis built around Daniel 12, looking for hope and practical encouragement for you navigating your own uncertainties today.
Yeah, you have to imagine Daniel was exhausted. He'd lived through so much. What was the final anchoring revelation he needed to hear? Not just for him, but for us, living in what the text calls the time of the end.
Well, we've identified 4 major anchors of hope in this final vision.
So let's start with the first one. It begins with what one analysis calls a declaration of explosive intensity, right, in verse 1.
At that time, Michael shall stand up.
And that phrase, shall stand up, that's everything, isn't it?
It is. Our material is really clear that Michael is consistently identified as God's preeminent warrior angel.
The protector.
The specific protector of God's people, yeah. And the context for him standing up it's massive. It happens during a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation.
So we're talking about the ultimate, unprecedented global crisis.
Nothing like it before or since.
Okay, but the scale of that trouble, it feels almost paralyzing.
Yeah.
It suggests that, all human efforts have completely failed.
Yeah.
So how does one angel standing up actually reconcile with that catastrophic level of destruction? It seems kind of mismatched.
It does. And that is exactly the point the analysis makes. This passage shifts our hope completely away from human effort and squarely onto divine intervention. The promise isn't that you will win this battle.
Right.
The promise is that God will send his deliverer. And what's fascinating here is what this trouble doesn't mean. It doesn't mean God is surprised by it or, scrambling at the last minute to figure out a plan.
So it's a strategic, pre-planned move.
Exactly. The text guarantees active involvement when it's needed most. At that moment of the greatest global shaking, God has already assigned protection. He activates the angels. He stands with his people.
So the analysis frames this as an assurance that even when the headlines are terrifying,
Heaven is not asleep.
yeah, and we see these patterns throughout history, which kind of makes it more tangible.
We do.
God raised Moses when Israel was crushed. He raised Deborah, David, and of course, ultimately Jesus for the deliverance of all humanity. Michael's rising here feels like that final, undeniable sign.
That God does not abandon his people. The lesson for you today is that God never allows a crisis that he hasn't already planned for. You are not defenseless.
The moment of greatest trouble is also the moment of guaranteed intervention.
Exactly. And that knowledge is meant to fuel our endurance in our smaller personal troubles right now.
That certainty of deliverance in life. It flows right into the next anchor of hope. The certainty of deliverance from death itself.
This brings us to verse 2.
Which is often cited as one of the clearest, most definitive resurrection verses in the whole Old Testament. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake.
And this is where the material we review just demands a literal interpretation. This isn't, poetry about a national revival or something symbolic.
No, this is people literally coming back to life.
It's the literal shattering of the finality of death. Daniel is being shown explicitly that the grave is not the end.
So what are the big implications of that verse? For life, for death, for destiny?
There are 3 critical takeaways. First, death gets completely redefined for the believer. It's called sleep in the dust.
Just a temporary state.
It's a comma in the story of your life, not a period. God writes the final chapter. Second, the resurrection here is universal in scope, but, and this is critical, it is not uniform in its outcome.
Okay, that's the part that really demands attention. Some awaken to everlasting life, but others to everlasting shame and contempt. Why is that distinction so crucial?
Because it validates the entire difficult path of faithfulness. I mean, if there was no distinction, then the person who endured and stood for truth would get the exact same outcome as someone who lived in rebellion.
It would make the struggle meaningless.
It would. This dual resurrection assures you that God not only remembers his people, but he performs a final righteous accounting. The dirt can't hide you. The grave can't silence your destiny.
The ultimate comfort here is that God remembers your name, even when your body returns to dust. And that's the foundation for faith, knowing that reward is guaranteed.
Absolutely. And that ties directly into our third anchor. The resurrection is the future glory. But Daniel 12.3 details the glory that happens before the grave.
The promise. Those who are wise shall shine like the stars forever.
It's a beautiful image.
It is. But who is this for? The verse says the wise, those who turn many to righteousness. What does wisdom even mean in this context? Is it about being smart?
Not at all. Not academic intelligence. The wisdom here is moral and spiritual conviction.
Okay.
It's the wisdom to choose righteousness even when it's costly over what's easy or popular. The sources define the people who shine as the wise, the righteous, and those who actively share their light with others.
So shining is the outcome of an internal character choice.
Yeah.
What does that shining look like for you today, practically speaking?
It means actively refusing to compromise. It means standing for truth when it's unpopular, living distinctively. I mean, look at Daniel himself.
Yeah.
He was surrounded by wicked kings, idolatry, the threat of the lion's den. Yet he kept his integrity. He shined not because of where he was, but because of who he was.
You know, here's the paradox that really sticks with me. The text says they will shine like the stars. And stars are only truly visible. They only really stand out when it's profoundly dark.
That's a great point.
As the world gets darker or louder with sin, the text promises that the light of God's faithful people will actually glow stronger. It'll become more noticeable.
It's a mandate, really. If you're feeling discouraged because the culture seems so dark, remember this promise. Your faithfulness, your quiet refusal to compromise, it is not wasted. That light becomes bolder precisely because the darkness is increasing.
Which brings us to, I think, the inevitable frustration that comes with prophecy. Daniel 12 talks about things we can know, but it also deals with things we cannot know.
And this is the fourth major insight. We see it in verses 4, 9, and 10. Daniel is told twice, specifically, to shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end.
So even Daniel, the one receiving the vision, wasn't meant to understand all of the timings and details.
That's right.
But that raises a huge challenge for faith. If God is giving a final revelation, why seal it? Why not just give us the full roadmap? It feels like it means not everything is supposed to make sense.
Well, our analysis suggests that God gives us enough revelation to trust him, but not so much that it completely replaces the need for faith.
I see.
One metaphor used in the material is, it's really profound. Sometimes God closes a door of knowledge not to hide it forever, but because we just don't need it yet. Knowing it now might actually get in the way of our current assignment.
That is so relevant for today. Facing all the uncertainty, global events, personal tragedies, unanswered prayer. We worry about the timeline. We stress over the details of prophecy.
And the divine instruction for this state of, sealed knowledge is remarkably simple. Go your way.
Go your way. What does that mean practically when the world feels chaotic and the future is so unclear?
It's a mandate to obedience, to duty, and to trust. It means stop worrying about the things God has sealed and focus intensely on the things he has revealed.
Do your assignment.
Do your assignment. Stay in your lane. Trust the God who holds the timeline. The command is to obey the core truths: righteousness, faithfulness, shining, not to stress about the future details God intentionally kept under wraps.
It's like permission to stop trying to solve the puzzle of the end times and instead just focus on being faithful until the end of your own journey.
And that faithfulness is crowned in the final, really breathtaking verse of the chapter.
Verse 13.
Daniel 12.13 is maybe one of the most beautiful and personal conclusions in all of Scripture. It moves past the global prophecy and gives a promise directly to this tired old prophet.
A promise that extends to all of us who endure.
It does. But you, go your way till the end, for you shall rest and will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days.
Wow. That one verse offers 4 just profoundly comforting certainties. Let's break those down.
Okay, first, go your way till the end. That's the call to finish your race. Live faithfully until your work is done. For Daniel, who survived so much, it's just finish well.
Simple but powerful.
Then second, you shall rest. After a life of service and heavy burdens, the ultimate blessing is peace. It's rest granted, not exhaustion feared.
Third, you will arise. And that circles right back to verse 2. It's a personal guarantee to Daniel of his own literal resurrection.
Death is temporary.
And finally, the culmination.
To your inheritance. This means a secure, definite reward is waiting. A crown, a kingdom, a destiny prepared for those who endured. Daniel's inheritance is secure. And that reward, that blessed hope, is the spiritual fuel you need for endurance today.
Okay, so let's bring this all back to you, the listener. If you've been through the lion's den of modern life, career, chaos, personal grief, global fear, Daniel 12 really distills 4 eternal truths for us.
First, trouble is certain, but ultimate deliverance is absolutely guaranteed. Michael stands up. Second, death is real, but resurrection is unstoppable.
Third, darkness increases, but the righteous are promised they will shine brighter like the stars.
Or finally, some things are sealed, but God is still in control, and he just commands our trust in the meantime.
So if you're feeling tired from the fight, Daniel's promise is a reminder. Rest is coming. If you feel unseen or forgotten, your inheritance is secure.
And if you're overwhelmed by what you don't know, the final actionable message is simple. Go your way till the end.
So what's the final thought you should be mulling over?
The challenge for you, based on that mandate to shine, is this. Reflect on what wisdom means for you today. What specific compromise in your language and your ethics and your integrity are you refusing to make right now so that your light can genuinely glow stronger in this environment?
Because God will do everything he promised to do in the future.
Your part is just to maintain fidelity now. Go your way.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are really immersing ourselves in one specific source.
Just one, yeah.
It's a sermon called For Such a Time as This, The Unlikely Assignment. And the core idea is pretty profound.
It really is.
It suggests that our circumstances, the ones that feel confusing or just mundane, they aren't random at all.
Right, that they're actually strategic placements. That's our mission today, to really analyze that argument.
And what is that central concept?
The source argues there's a moment. It says heaven presses upon the heart.
Okay.
And it's not just a feeling, it's a whisper that says, this moment is bigger than you. Step forward. And that's what it calls a divine assignment.
And to make this case, the source leans really heavily on the book of Esther.
It does.
Which is such a compelling choice because, as the sermon points out, there are no huge, loud miracles.
Exactly. No burning bush, no parted sea.
None of that. But it insists that God's fingerprints are everywhere.
It forces you to look for a different kind of intervention.
Yes.
It's hidden. It's providence.
And all that hidden work sets the stage for the big question, right?
The anchor for this whole thing, Mordecai's question to Esther. Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
A question that's framed not just for her, but for all of us.
For right now, absolutely.
Okay, so let's unpack that. This idea of an unlikely assignment. Yeah. It really starts with the person herself, with Esther. We tend to think of destined people as, born for it.
Polished, with a perfect resume.
Right. But the source argues God's strategy is the opposite. He specializes in using the overlooked. So tell us about Esther's starting point.
Well, her starting point is the whole point, really. It completely undercuts this idea of, natural merit. She's not a princess.
Not at all.
She's an orphan. She's an exile. She walks into the Persian court with, as the source puts it, nothing but beauty, humility, and God's hidden favor.
So the world, the political system, the social structure, it just looks right past her.
Completely overlooks her. But from this other perspective, she is perfectly appointed.
It's such a powerful idea that your lack of credentials might actually be what qualifies you.
Exactly.
And the source doesn't just leave it at Esther, does it? It gives other examples to show this is a pattern.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a one-off. The sermon immediately pulls in these other, iconic figures to show this is a principle of unlikely vessels.
Like who?
Well, think about Moses. He had a stutter. He was terrified of public speaking.
Right.
Or David, a shepherd boy with a slingshot against a giant. And maybe the best example is Gideon.
Who was hiding.
Literally hiding in fear when he was called to lead an army, threshing wheat in a wine press so nobody would see him.
So you have the stutterer, the shepherd boy, and the guy who's hiding.
Yeah.
That really just demolishes the myth that you have to be perfectly equipped.
It does. But then there's the other objection people have. Their past.
Their mistakes.
Yeah, their failures. And the source makes this really sweeping claim. It just says flat out, your background does not cancel your calling. Your past does not disqualify your purpose.
So God isn't looking for our perfection.
He's looking for availability. And more importantly, our strategic location. The focus shifts from what you lack to where you are.
And that positioning, that's the next piece of the puzzle, isn't it? Providence.
Yes.
So if it's not about qualifications, it must be about strategy.
Yeah.
How does the source explain her becoming queen as something other than, a lucky break?
It's defined as divine placement, not a coincidence. The sermon is clear that God plants people in strategic places long before the battle ever begins. He positions them for a moment that might be years down the road.
And if you bring that idea into today, into our own lives, it hits home. I mean, we've all had jobs or been in neighborhoods or seasons that just, they make no sense.
They feel so frustrating, yeah.
But this reframes them. They're not roadblocks. They could be, staging areas?
That's the perfect word for it. The core message here becomes so personal. It's, you are not where you are by accident. You are there on assignment. Right. That dead-end job, that difficult group of people you're with, that might be the one place your specific influence is needed.
And every assignment seems to have an antagonist. For Esther, that moment comes when Haman shows up.
Right. And Haman isn't just a bad guy. He represents a spiritual principle the source points to.
Which is?
Anytime God elevates someone for a purpose, the opposition agitates against you.
So Haman was the agitation. And he had all the visible power. The king's ear, the authority, the decree.
It was written into law. It looked unstoppable.
Yeah.
But the source stresses this point. Haman had the decree, but he did not have the final word.
And that leads us to the behind-the-scenes stuff.
The orchestration. The idea that the real battle was won in the details long before Esther ever decided to approach the king.
This is where it gets so good, because it's about providence working through, administrative details, not just spectacle. So let's trace those steps.
Okay, so there are a few threats. First, obviously, Esther's elevation. She's already in the palace.
Positioned.
Second, Mordecai's loyalty. Remember, he had uncovered that plot against the king. It was written down in the records. But he was never rewarded for it, just a forgotten detail.
And then the third thing, which is the real linchpin. The king's sleepless night.
The insomnia.
Okay, but I want to challenge this idea of hidden providence for a second. A king can't sleep. He asks for the history books. And they just happen to read the one page about Mordecai's good deed. That sounds pretty direct.
That is a brilliant question. And the source doesn't see it as a lightning bolt kind of miracle.
How does it see it then?
As the culmination of all that silent administrative work, God didn't invent a new record. He just activated a forgotten detail at the perfect moment. The miracle wasn't the insomnia itself.
It was the timing.
The perfect timing. It happens the night before Haman plans to execute Mordecai. So while the enemy is building the weapon, the gallows, God is already forming the victory by making the king restless.
That's a huge comfort, isn't it? The idea that while we're in a crisis, God might be working with forgotten from our own past to write the reversal.
But the orchestration still needed a human response. Esther was safe. She was comfortable in the palace.
And comfort can lead to complacency.
Which is the enemy of destiny. That's why Mordecai's message was so crucial. He tells her, if you stay silent, relief and deliverance will arise from another place.
That is a staggering thought. The plan doesn't fail if we do, but we lose our part in it.
We forfeit our role. And the source gets really specific here, listing times when we can't be silent.
When injustice rises.
When truth is attacked, when families are under siege, it makes it so clear that destiny isn't just fated to happen, it's activated by obedience.
That palace door, which could have meant her death, only opens because she decides to move.
And before she moves toward the king, she does something else. It's not political.
It's consecration.
She says, go, gather all the Jews. Fast for me, and so will I, and if I perish, I perish.
She confronts heaven before she confronts the man.
Yes, and that fast is so important. The source explains it as an act to disconnect you from fear and reconnect you with divine clarity. It's admitting that a spiritual war can't be won with natural strength.
And that famous line, if I perish, I perish. It's so often seen as, fatalistic.
Yeah.
Like she's giving up.
But the source defines it completely differently. It calls it the battle cry of surrender.
Surrender to what?
To the calling, not to fate. It's the moment her purpose becomes more important than her comfort or even her life. And that's how it defines courage.
Courage is not the absence of fear.
It is obedience in spite of it. It's walking forward when everything inside you is screaming to run away.
And that surrender, that obedience, it activates everything. The great reversal begins.
The silent work becomes visible. And the justice is so poetic, Haman builds gallows for Mordecai.
And ends up on them himself.
It's the ultimate statement. The decree for destruction becomes a decree for victory, and Mordecai goes from sackcloth and mourning straight into royal robes.
But this all brings us right back to the listener. The source pivots hard from ancient Persia to right now with the headline, "Your moment is now."
Yeah.
So for all these strategically placed, unlikely people, where are our assignments?
And this is where the source gets so practical. It's not about waiting for some huge global stage. It distills it down to 3 critical areas of everyday life.
What are they?
1, your workplace is your mission field. Your integrity, your professionalism, how you treat people, that's your ministry.
Okay.
2, your family is your ministry, the influence you have in your own home. And 3, your community is your assignment.
So your neighborhood, your local groups, your school board.
Your immediate sphere of influence. That's it. It takes all the pressure off and centers your destiny right where you are right now, even if you feel stuck.
The message is that your sphere of influence is exactly the right size.
Exactly. And your prayers, your voice, your small acts of obedience, they matter. The same God who positioned an orphan in a palace is the one positioning you in your cubicle or your neighborhood today.
So if we pull it all together, the final takeaway is really about identity.
It is.
You were born into this generation because, as the source says, God trusted you with this moment. You carry a purpose no one else can.
And it leaves us with that final powerful declaration. You are chosen. You are called. You are positioned. You are prepared. You are preserved. You are appointed for such a time as this.
It's a stunning affirmation. But let's go back to that tension point for a second to close. Destiny is activated by obedience.
Right.
But Mordecai's warning to Esther was that if she stayed silent, deliverance would just come from somewhere else. Her inaction wouldn't have stopped God's plan. It would just cost her her role in it.
And considering that principle, that choice and consequence, maybe this is the thing to think about. What is the single small step of obedience? Family, your job, your community that you've been avoiding. And if you keep refusing to take it, could the relief and deliverance God intends for that situation just arise from another place, causing you to forfeit your own victory? That's the real cost of complacency we all have to wrestle with. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
So today we are taking a look at a stack of sources that connect 2 places that, well, they seem almost impossible to link at first.
They really do.
We're talking about ancient Babylon, a huge, sprawling empire defined by, foreign gods and external pressure, and modern Anaheim, California, the land of palm trees, freeways, and just relentless consumerism.
It sounds like a stretch, but the author of these notes makes a really compelling case that the connection is incredibly deep. It's not about geography.
No, not at all. It's about how you navigate a culture that feels foreign to your core beliefs and find this profound divine purpose. And not despite the environment, but often because of it.
That's exactly it. What we're doing today is really trying to distill a kind of blueprint for finding purpose, especially if you feel like your life, your job, your city is, well, ordinary.
Or even hostile to what you believe.
Right. And we're going to unpack 2 main ideas. First, the sources make this really strong case that true conviction starts with a deliberate, heart-level decision. That's a reference to Daniel 1.8, which we'll get into.
Okay.
And second, we're going to look at how modern trials, the disappointments, the betrayals, they aren't actually obstacles. The author frames them as fireproofing for your life.
And the whole thing starts with the author's own experience. They describe growing up in Anaheim, feeling completely invisible, just anonymous in the rush of the city.
Questioning if God could really have a plan for someone stuck in traffic next to a theme park.
Exactly. But the big realization of place, he starts writing the story right where you are. And that idea just immediately challenges this notion that a divine calling has to come with, a burning bush or some kind of angelic visit.
Yeah, the author realized their calling started in these really quiet moments, whispered prayers on late night walks, the daily grind of just trying to hold on to what you believe when everything around you is screaming the opposite.
It's that ordinary, unseen battle.
Totally.
So let's pause on that Babylon metaphor for a second. Obviously, Anaheim isn't literally Babylon. What are the specific pressures the author points to that make it a kind of spiritual stand-in?
Well, Daniel was pressured to assimilate, right? New name, new diet, new values.
Right.
The author says in modern Anaheim, it's less about royal food and more about compromising your internal convictions. The sources really zero in on two things: consumer anonymity and career idolatry.
Career idolatry, that's powerful. The idea that your job, your hustle, your success, that becomes the modern golden image that demands your worship.
Exactly. It pulls your loyalty away from what you say you believe. And that feeling of anonymity is so corrosive. In a massive city, it's so easy to feel like you don't matter.
Which makes it tempting to compromise just to feel seen or successful or part of something.
Mm-hmm. And the author realized this constant pressure to, quote, bow to the world's expectations forces you to a decision. Your faith can't just be words or something you do on a Sunday. It has to be a 247 lifestyle.
So how did they make that shift from just agreeing with an idea to actually living it out? Did the sources give any specific examples of that struggle?
They did. They talked about walking alone through Anaheim at night, just feeling the weight of the city's demands for success, for perfection, and realizing the only path forward was surrender.
Just letting go.
Yeah, learning to actually listen for God's voice, trust timing, and this is the big one, surrendering your own carefully made plans, your career goals, financial plans, all of it.
Wow.
That act of talking to God like a friend while cars are rushing past you, that became the training ground.
So the chaos wasn't a distraction from the calling?
No, it was essential to the calling. That struggle is what set the whole direction.
Which brings us to the decision itself. Because if the environment is demanding compromise, you have to respond with conviction.
Have to. And this leads us straight to that foundational moment.
Daniel 1.8. We should probably slow down here because the author spends a lot of time on this. The verse says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart."
And the emphasis is on what that means. The author is so insistent that this wasn't a fleeting thought. It wasn't hoped in his spirit.
Right.
It was a deliberate, willful, heart-level commitment. A choice made on the inside. A declaration of intent, no matter what the culture or the king demanded.
It's about taking back control and giving it to God.
That's the essence of it.
So for the author in Anaheim, what did that purpose look like in practice?
It was the conscious choice to follow Jesus Christ, to walk by faith, and to actively reject the story that culture or fear was trying to write for them. It was a commitment to let God be the author, even when the next step felt, well, terrifying.
Oh, wait, the author also says they still stumbled, questioned, and wrestled with flaws. How do you square that? Doesn't that make the big purpose moment seem less powerful?
That's such a crucial point, and the source addresses it directly. The purpose decision isn't a declaration that you've suddenly become perfect.
Okay.
It's an acknowledgement of your dependence. The author says, Jesus saves us because we need him, because we're flawed, not because we figured it all out in one moment.
So the purpose is more like a compass.
Exactly. It's the compass that gets you back on track when you inevitably wander off.
And this perspective just completely changed how the author saw their own talents, right?
Absolutely. The source draws a direct line here. Daniel could interpret dreams not just because he was gifted, but because his heart was fundamentally surrendered. The surrender came first.
And the author applied that directly to their own work, photography, writing, ministry. These weren't just skills for a career anymore.
No. They became tools of God's purpose.
That's a total reframing.
It is, because if your gift is a tool, its purpose is to bring glory to the giver. It just takes all the pressure of personal ambition off the table. Suddenly, you're not just building a portfolio. You're using what you've been given for a much higher purpose.
Okay, so we've got the heart's conviction, the surrender of the will, but conviction is always tested.
Always.
Which leads us to the faith in the fire idea and the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Right. And the sources are very clear about what that fiery furnace looks like today. It's not usually a literal king.
No.
It's the soul testing stuff. Overwhelming financial pressure.
Yeah.
Discouragement that just suffocates you. Betrayals, disappointments, and those agonizing seasons where it feels like your prayers are hitting a ceiling.
Those are the flames. And those are the moments that reveal if the purpose you set in your heart was real. But what's miraculous here isn't just surviving the fire, it's who is in the fire with you.
This critical insight. The author focuses everything on the presence of Jesus, the fourth man standing in the flames with them. That is the ultimate assurance.
The source quotes a promise.
Yeah, a powerful one. The fire can't burn what I have covered.
Wow. That changes everything. The fire isn't there to destroy you, it's there to refine you. It's the fireproofing.
Exactly. It burns away the dross, the doubt, the fear that comes from the culture.
But it can't touch what's real.
It can't. And that means strong, lasting faith isn't built in comfort, it's forged in the heat. The author concludes that every single trial, every moment of pressure, ultimately strengthens your testimony. It prepares you for whatever's next.
So if you look back, the times you grew the most were probably after you came through the hardest things.
Without a doubt, the fire is necessary, not for punishment, but for building strength.
So let's bring it all together. You have Daniel's example, staying faithful through changing kings, shifting empires, all this cultural pressure. What does that kind of faithfulness look like for the author today?
It boils down to a few key things. It's not about being perfect, but about being persistent.
A daily striving.
That's right. The author defines it as trying to be faithful in prayer, faithful in worship, faithful in truth, and just diligent in their walk with Jesus.
And the journey that started with feeling lost and invisible in Anaheim, it comes full circle.
They look back at that loud, secular environment and realize they were positioned there for such a time as this. Their modern Babylon was actually their preparation.
It's the realization of the sovereign author, the idea that Jesus didn't just save their soul, he saved their life.
Yes, he gave meaning to their steps, purpose to their work, peace to their heart. The book of Daniel becomes this mirror, this guide that reminds you God is in control even when everything feels chaotic and random.
It confirms that faithfulness honors God and God honors that faithfulness.
And that leads to this final identity. The author embraces it. Live like Daniel. Faithful in the world, committed to prayer, and unshaken by the pressure because the decision was already made in your heart.
So the ultimate conclusion from all these sources is incredibly powerful. Jesus is the author, the savior, the king, and the actual fireproofing of your life. He protects the conviction you purpose in your heart.
He does. And that leaves us with one final thought for you to chew on. If trials and pressures are necessary for this fireproofing, then what specific compromise or cultural expectation in your own Anaheim must you purpose in your heart not to bow to?
And maybe even more important, where is that fourth man already present, waiting with you inside your biggest challenge right now?
A great question to end on.
Think about where your own Anaheim meets your Babylon. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep seeking knowledge and keep diving into your own sources of insight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for subscribing and hit like button. I still pray for you guys. Have faith in Jesus. Every time I think about you guys, I keep praying for you. Jesus love you always and forever. God bless you.